He never had to raise his voice to win. He didn't need to. Because the most dangerous thing a narcissist does isn't screaming. It's the calm, quiet sentence that makes you apologize for being hurt. These are the 7 things he says to control you. Watch closely, because number 4 is the one that makes you doubt your own memory, and number 7 is the one he says right before he disappears. And I want you to be honest with yourself while you listen, because you may have heard some of these before. Maybe last week, maybe this morning. Here's what nobody tells you about control. It doesn't sound like control. It sounds like love. It sounds like concern. It sounds like a good man just trying to help you be better. That's what makes it work. It starts with 5 words, said softly, almost kindly. You're too sensitive. You brought up something that hurt you, something small, a joke that cut too deep, a night you felt invisible. And instead of hearing you, he tilts his head, and with a patient little smile, he says it. You're too sensitive. And just like that, the conversation flips. You came in with a wound. You leave, apologizing for having it. Here's what those words really mean. He is teaching you that your feelings are a defect, that the problem was never what he did. It's that you felt it at all. Do this enough times, and you stop bringing things up. Not because they stopped hurting, but because it's easier than being told you're broken for noticing. That's not sensitivity. That's him installing an off switch on your own emotions. And once you stop trusting your feelings, he goes after your memory. That's not what happened. You remember it clearly. The words he used, where you were standing, how it made your stomach drop. And you bring it up, calmly, carefully, and he looks you dead in the eye and says, "That's not what happened. You're twisting things. That's not what I said." And he says it with such certainty that something in you cracks. Maybe I misremembered. Maybe I am twisting it. This is gaslighting, and here's the mechanism underneath it. He isn't arguing about the facts. He's rewriting who gets to decide what's real. Because if he can make you doubt your own memory, then he never has to be accountable for anything. Ever. There's no receipt you can show, no proof he'll accept. The only version of reality left standing is his. She stays and asks him what really happened, which is exactly what he says next.
I'm the only one who really knows you.
At first, it sounds like intimacy, like he sees the real you that nobody else bothered to find. Your friends don't get you. Your family judges you. But me? I actually understand you. And it feels like being known. So you lean into him and away from everyone else. But listen to what he's actually doing. He is quietly, lovingly, cutting every other voice out of your life. Because the people who love you are dangerous to him. They'd notice the bruises that don't show. They'd say, "That's not okay." So he makes them the enemy, one by one, until the only mirror you have left is the one he's holding. And he'll show you exactly what he wants you to see. If you felt even one of these land in your chest so far, you're not crazy, and you're not alone. This channel exists so you can name what's being done to you. Subscribe and stay with me, because the next 4 are how he takes your guilt, your fear, and your reality and turns them into a leash. After everything I've done for you. You try to set a boundary. You say no. You ask for one small thing for yourself. And out comes the ledger. Every favor, every dollar, every ride, every time he put up with you. Laid out like a debt you didn't know you'd signed for. And the guilt is instant, suffocating. How can you be so selfish after everything he's done? But here's the truth. Love doesn't keep a receipt. The moment a man starts itemizing his kindness, it was never kindness. It was a down payment. Every nice thing was an investment he always intended to collect on. And the interest is your obedience. That's not generosity. That's a purchase. You were the thing he bought. If you leave,
No one else will want you.
This one he saves for when you're getting close to the door. When some part of you is finally waking up. And he sees it. So he reaches for the deepest fear you have and presses down. Who's going to want you? Look at you. You're difficult. You're damaged. I'm the best you're ever going to get. And the terrifying part is, by now, you might believe him. Understand why he says it. This is a prisoner's sentence. He's not describing your worth. He's building the walls of the cage, hoping you'll stop checking whether the door is even locked. Because a woman who believes she's unlovable never leaves. Why would she run toward a world she's been convinced will reject her? He didn't lower your value. He just spent months convincing you that he did.
You're crazy.
Everyone thinks so. Now he doesn't just rewrite your memory. He recruits an audience. When you get upset, rightfully upset, he stays unnervingly calm and says, "You're being crazy. Honestly, my friends have noticed too. Even your own sister thinks you've changed." And suddenly, you're not just fighting him. You're fighting a whole invisible jury you can't cross-examine. Here's the trick. Half those people never said a word. He invented them. Because one accuser you can argue with, but an entire crowd? That makes you go quiet. That makes you manage yourself, soften yourself, shrink, just to prove to a courtroom that doesn't exist that you're not the monster he says you are. That's not the truth. That's a smear campaign with an audience of one, you. And then, when he's done with you, he says the last thing. I never loved you anyway. It comes out of nowhere, after the years, after you rearranged your whole life around him. He says it flat, bored, like he's canceling a subscription. Honestly, I never really loved you. I don't know what I was doing with you. And it detonates everything. Because if he never loved you, then what was all of it for? But hear me carefully. This is the final act of control, and it's the biggest lie of them all. He says it to keep power on his way out the door, to make sure you spend months grieving, questioning, rewriting every good memory into a lie. Because if he can poison the past, he still lives rent-free in your head long after he's gone. He didn't tell you the truth at the end. He told you the one thing that would hurt the most. That was never honesty. That was one last hit. So if you're sitting there, hearing his voice in these words, I need you to hear mine too. You are not too sensitive. You are not crazy. You did not misremember. And you were never unlovable. Those were never descriptions of you. They were tools, used by someone who needed you small so he could feel big. Now you know all 7. You're too sensitive. That's not what happened. I'm the only one who knows you. After everything I've done. No one else will want you. Everyone thinks you're crazy. And I never loved you anyway. 7 sentences, 1 purpose, to make his voice louder than your own. But not anymore. Because now, the next time one of these lands, you won't apologize. You won't shrink. You'll recognize it for exactly what it is. And that recognition, that's the moment he loses. If this reached you, someone else needs it too. Share it with the woman you thought about while listening. Subscribe for the story that decodes what he does next. And tell me in the comments, which one of these 7 did he say to you?